Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, May the 25th, 2016. This is show number 1093. I am your host, Shawn King. Thank you guys for joining me here on live, you folks in the IRC chat room and the Telegram chat room. You can join either one by going to our website at yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there, our good friend Monty Freeman, who's off vacationing in the Caribbean as we speak. He set up the IRC chat room for us right there below the video. All you do is put in a name, your real name, a fake name, whatever it is. It dumps you into the IRC. Or there's a link there to our Telegram room that's open 24/7, every day of the week, 24 hours a day. You're more than welcome to join us in the Telegram room. Both are back. Both are available for you guys. Even your archive folks, you're listening to me now on Thursday or Sunday or Tuesday, you can join the Telegram room and say hi, because I'll be there. We always are. We won't be seeing. I don't think we'll be seeing Sly tonight. Sly is going off to some island somewhere, Quadra Island. Isn't that kind of funny? She's a Mac user going to Quadra Island. Yeah, only old timers will get that joke. Never mind. Moving on. So on tonight's show, we're going to be talking to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of the Loop at loopinsight.com about the new Apple Store look. At least of the new Apple Store in San Francisco, and whether that look will be seen around the world, across the country, in a store near you. Probably not. Just FYI, probably not. Also to be talking about, I don't know if you saw the story in Ars Technica of one of their writers taking out a Tesla for a 400-mile self-driving test drive. I know it's the future, but I couldn't let a car drive for 400 miles. Although reading the story was really interesting. He had some video, and it looked pretty cool. It looked really, really interesting. That he went from Houston through traffic, even bumper-to-bumper rush hour traffic, out on the interstates into Austin and back again in a self-driving Tesla. So we'll talk a little bit about that and a bunch of other stuff. In our starting point photography segment, I got questions. I always get questions. Love getting questions, by the way, just in general. On air at yourmaclifeshow.com if you want to send questions during the live show, or Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com anytime during the week. Which reminds me, if you sent in a photo for our photo critique review, resend it, because with my hard drive crash last week, I lost all the photos. Don't get on me about it. Shut up. But in the starting point photography segment, we're going to be talking about this camera versus this camera. See the difference? Huge. DSLR versus mirrorless. What's the difference? Why is one better than the other or not, depending on your point of view? We'll talk about mirrorless versus DSLR cameras. As always, we encourage you guys to go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there on the left-hand side, you can subscribe to Your Mac Life for $2, $5, $10, $15 a month, whatever it is you so choose. Helps pay for stuff around here, mostly motorcycle stuff. I'll be honest with you, it pays for tires and maintenance. I got a $1,000 maintenance thing coming up. I have to get my valves checked on the motorcycle. I don't even know what valves are. I'm so mechanically incompetent. I have a vague idea what valves are. I don't know why they need to be checked. I don't know what is involved in checking them. I know they're in the engine, which means I know the bike has to be taken apart, which is going to be a giant pain in the butt, because it means I got to rent a car, because they don't have loaner. You go to your car dealership, they have loaner cars. They don't have loaner motorcycles. So I have to go to a car place, rent a car, then take the bike to the dealership, and then a cab to the car place to get the rental car, and then switch it all around. Wayne says $1,000 just to check them? No, it's $1,000 for a bunch of other stuff. But the valves are the main thing. It's supposedly going to take 10 to 12 hours to do. So bikes aren't cheap. Don't ever let anyone tell you bikes are cheap. They're not fuel efficient, and they're not cheap. At least, the high performance type bikes that I got. I can't do any of this stuff on my own, because I'm a boob. P. Boo says, Enterprise will pick you up. Yes, if you're in an area where Enterprise picks you up. It's unlikely they'll pick me up in Langley, which is the boonies of BC. DJ McIntosh, I'm looking forward to the WWD edition of YML. Why, dude? WWDC. It's going to be geek stuff, and we don't talk geek stuff. I can't talk geek stuff. There'll be some interesting things. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight with Jim. This is a bunch of rumored stuff right now. And even after the announcements, a lot of it's going to be stuff that, is only going to be for the developers in the audience. And DJ's a developer, so. Wayne says, does Apple do Computex? No, they don't do any shows. They'll occasionally do one or two of the big education shows in the U.S. I don't know that they have any kind of real presence in any other show. Certainly not CES. Certainly not the big European shows. They don't need to anymore. Apple doesn't need to go to a convention to promote their stuff, because all Apple has to do is say, hey, come here next Tuesday, and the world's press will. So why bother going to a Computex or CEX or a CBIT or anything else like that, spending $1 million at least to go and show your stuff off when you can do it anytime you want with the world's media. Speaking of which, do you remember these many years ago? Cast your thoughts back in time to a time 15 years ago when Apple was just opening up the Apple retail stores. And this is a story I got time to tell. I've been a huge fan of Apple retail stores, the mom and pop type stores, for years. We used to have 7 here in Vancouver and had a lot of fun hanging out there and just being a Mac guy. There is an organization called the Apple Specialist Network, and it's basically a, for lack of a better term, a lobbying group for the Apple resellers. And so 16 years ago, those guys would always get together at the Macworld Expos and do a little thing. And 16 years ago, Steve Jobs showed up to the Apple Resellers Network meeting. And one of the dealers flat out said, Mr. Jobs, there's a rumor going around that Apple is going to open up retail locations in direct competition with everybody in this room. What do you say to that? And Jobs said to him, no, we're not. Okay? Fast forward 6 months to the next Macworld Expo. This is in the days when Macworld Expos were every 6 months in Boston, San Francisco, and then New York. Same Apple reseller, Apple Specialist Network. Same guy stands up, same Steve Jobs, and he says, Mr. Jobs, 6 months ago, you stood in front of the same group and said you weren't going to open up Apple retail stores. Now we see that you are in fact going to open up Apple retail stores. How do you respond to lying to us 6 months ago? And Steve Jobs said, and I quote, that's capitalism. So people thought that Apple opening up its own retail stores was going to be a disaster. Because, and a lot of folks don't realize this, another company, a PC company called Gateway, had opened up hundreds and hundreds of stores throughout the United States. And they had just gone out of business, closed like 1,100 stores all at once. Boom, just closed them down. And everyone said, well, if Gateway can't make this work, there's no way Apple can make this work. Because typical of the media, they think the past is the present. So what Gateway did and didn't work, Apple was going to do, and it wasn't going to work. But what the media didn't realize, a lot of Mac users did, was the process of buying a Macintosh 16 years ago and longer was a complete nightmare unless you went to an Apple reseller. They used to sell Macs in Sears and in other weird locations like that, and they were never, ever set up properly. At one point, I was the Western Canada supervisor for Apple's demo days. And what we would do is we'd go around to in Canada, they were called Future Shops. They're now owned by Best Buy, but the same sort of thing as Best Buy in the States. And we would set up at the time a Performance 6400 with a quick take camera. Ooh, we had quick take cameras. Yes, that's how old I am, kids. And we would demonstrate the Macintosh because the Best Buy guys, the Future Shop guys, just couldn't do it. They didn't know enough about the product for them to be able to efficiently demonstrate it. The other thing was Future Shop and Best Buy would get these things called spliffs. What they were basically were, they were kickbacks for selling a company's product. So HP would say, hey, this week we're giving spliffs of $50 for every one of these printers that you sell. So you'd go into Future Shop or Best Buy and say, I want to buy a printer. This HP printer is the best printer we sell. It may have been, it may not have been, but the sales guy got $50 for selling it to you. Apple never participated in that program. So there was no incentive, direct monetary incentive for the sales guy to sell you a Macintosh. I remember everybody had PCs back then. So they'd rather sell you a PC they're going to make $50 on, along with their salary, than sell you this Macintosh thing. So Apple realized that they needed to take control of their retail channel. It just wasn't working the way they wanted it to. The problem was it was a scorched earth policy from Apple, that they would open up Apple stores, Apple retail stores, no matter where the other Apple resellers were. They would open them up within a city block. And they had the money and the access to open up in malls that the Apple resellers couldn't afford. Lots of traffic. Then the issue came that Apple started actively screwing over the resellers by holding back product. Now, this is in the days before the iPhone, but for the longest time, you couldn't buy an iPhone at an Apple reseller. You could only buy one at the Apple stores. Quite often, the Apple stores would get product before the Apple resellers by a significant margin, months and months. A new MacBook would come out. You'd go to your local Apple reseller and say, I want to buy this new MacBook. And they go, Apple hasn't sent us any. You'd go to the Apple store, and sure enough, there'd be a bunch there. So Apple actively screwed over these guys. So I'm ambivalent to the Apple stores. I also find them boring. I find the Apple stores to be the exact same in every mall I go into. You could teleport someone from Houston to Vegas to Winnipeg to most other places. The stores, they wouldn't be able to tell where they were from the stores. I find that boring. That's just me, though. The stores have been a huge success. There's absolutely no doubt about it. As we'll talk later, Apple is the single most successful retailer from a square foot point of view on the planet. More than any other retailer. Best Buy, Nordstrom's, Tiffany's. They sell diamonds. Wayne says, what you call boring, they call branding. Exactly. I'm like I said, it's just that's me. I find them boring. It's funny when people complain about the Apple stores, about how busy they are. That's a good problem to have. It's a much better problem than the Microsoft stores have, that's for sure, or the Sony stores, or the other vendors who have their own stores. So there's no doubt that the stores have been a huge success for Apple. And a great way to buy product with the free tech support with the Genius Bars and the free training that they, I don't know, used to have. I don't know if they still have. All the greats they have. I had just been saying in the pre-show that things didn't go bad during the show. And yet, shit went bad during the show. Why do you hate me? I mean, seriously. This is my life, all right? This is the way I go through all the time. This is why I'm so angry and frustrated 95% of the time, because shit like this happens. Ah! Might need to move the show to Tuesday or Thursday. Oh my God, sweet baby Jesus. Oh, man. Okay, I'm gonna get Jim on the phone. I'll be right back. Just hang on there. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on this Wednesday evening in our phone from under the bridge. We've got a good friend, Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I got a beer and hockey's on, and you know,
life is good.
Well, so I don't know about that, but you know, I've got a beer and hockey's on.
So you're watching hockey. How are your Bruins doing?
You piss off.
This is an awful hockey season for Canadians. All right, not only do no Canadian teams make the playoffs, but it looks like there's a potential for the San Jose Sharks, Tampa Bay Lightning to be in the finals. Two cities where ice doesn't occur naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I've got enough going on where I don't need to focus on the Bruins right now. If I do that, then I may just lay down and cry.
So how is the Beard Bash going?
God.
That has got to be for those folks who don't know, there was a whole bunch of nerds who lost their shit over the name The Beard Bash. That has got to be the perfect example of the internet faux rage of people going off half-cocked without having a clue what they're talking about and shooting their mouth off that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I was very disappointed, to be honest with you.
So was I. All someone had to do was say, hey, why is it called the Beard Bash?
Right.
As simple as that, and it would solve the whole problem. But everyone just assumed that it was, and the thing that killed me was people complaining about how the Beard Bash was going to be exclusionary to outsiders. It's WWDC. They're all outsiders, insiders.
Well, and the fact is, the invite was open to everybody.
Exactly.
I didn't give a single ticket to anybody until it was open to the public first. There was not a list. There was not, you know, I mean, nobody got a ticket. I still don't have a ticket.
I'm sure they'll let you in, though.
You know, nobody got a ticket. It's not like I did this thing and then, you know, invited all kinds of people privately,
yeah.
all guys.
Yeah, that's right. All guys with beards.
You know, I opened it to developers, and in a matter of hours, all the tickets were gone.
Of course.
And just for the record, there are lots of women in there as well.
It just killed me seeing people on Twitter saying, oh, I saw the name The Beard Bash. I don't have one, so I figured I couldn't go. Yeah. What kind of moron are you?
Well, you know, I guess it's the people that were yelling about it were people that don't know me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I try and include everybody. And the fact is, the party is named after my beard. I mean,
all you have to do is ask.
I don't know what else to say. I mean, should I not have a party named after my beard? Well, I guess that's up for discussion as of this one, but that's the only reason, and it's just for fun.
Yep.
You know, it's a free party for developers.
Yep.
You know, they don't have to pay for a ticket. They don't have to pay for beer or wine.
Yep.
They can just come and, you know, I've got 2 bands that I've hired to come in and play, rock music and just so people can have fun.
Yep.
That's all it was. And, you know, when I said, I think it was Jean McDonald said, you know, that she said something about it in support of me, and I said I was saddened by the discussion, and I was offended.
Yep.
Then people started making fun of me because I was offended. Well, you know, I don't know what to say. I was offended by it, but you know, life goes on, I guess. And
it just,
you know,
again, it's just one of those things where the internet wants to be offended. These people want to be. They're looking for ways to be offended, to get their backs up over whatever it is that they might want to get their backs up about. It's just utterly ridiculous.
Well,
these people do this.
Maybe I'm not sensitive enough, but I never considered the fact that people would be offended by me naming my party after my beard. That's because right. in the Mac and iOS space, I mean, everybody knows I have a beard, and they all know that you know, my beard talks to me and I talk to it, and you know, but I never considered the possibility that people would be truly offended by it. And I don't know what to say about that. I really don't. I mean, yeah,
it was just utterly ridiculous. And the thing is, this is what, the 4th or 5th year of the Beard Bash?
This is the 6th.
6th year of the Beard Bash. Yeah. So all someone had to do was do a Google search for Beard Bash, and they would have found out that it's been going on for a while, and no one's upset about it until you know what? It's those iMore weasels. That's because this didn't happen in previous years, right? This didn't happen when you were sponsored by other people. It's those fuckers at iMore.
Oh my God! And you know what's funny is that some of the organizations at WDC, like G McDonald has App Camp for Girls, and there's WWDC Girls. I mean, those people all registered for tickets.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but again, those people know me, and they know what kind of a party it is, and they know it's going to be a fun time, and there's no strings attached. Yep. You know, you don't have to give your information at the door, and you don't have to, you know, there's a great RSVP that you'd show. They scan it with their iPhone, and all that does is say that you have a valid ticket. That's it.
Well, the thing was that people thought this was somehow exclusionary, that it was only, again, some idiots thought it was only for those folks with beards, or it was only for men, or it was only for, and the idea that you would think this was exclusionary cracks me up, because it's WWDC. It's already exclusionary. Okay, so this is you're thinking this is an exclusionary event inside of an exclusionary event, and your head should have exploded and you should fall on the floor.
But see, I look at it as a party for great developers.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's it. I didn't put that down to a party for great developers that are women from Ireland, or that are for women only or for men only, just developers. And there's a lot of them coming from around the world. I mean, the amount of people that are coming from outside of North America is astounding. I would say the majority are coming from outside of North America.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love it. I love that these people, some of them for the first time, are going to be involved in this party.
Yep.
And that was my only concern until all of this came up. And it's not that I'm trying to be exclusionary. I just wanted to have a party where people could come and have a good time. And then I find myself in the middle of of all of this. And if there's a way I could have avoided it, I certainly would have. Believe me.
No, don't. I hope this doesn't dissuade you from Beard Bash #7 next year. That hopefully these idiots will pull their heads out of their asses and figure out that this is a fun event put on by a fun guy for the benefit of the entire WWDC community. And if they don't get that, then fuck them. Don't. Seriously, I'm so pissed off. I didn't jump in on it for the most part because this was your event and there was already enough piling on, but I really wanted to say a bunch of stuff to some of these idiots. And most of it was that you're all morons for taking this innocent event that you know nothing about and blowing it so far out of proportions. Hopefully this doesn't dissuade you from doing this again next year.
Well, I think this one will go off pretty good. It's going to be a busy event.
Yep. Good. Well,
it's going to be the biggest one we've thrown so far.
Yep. Good. Let's move on. You were at the press briefing last Thursday for the Apple Store opening in San Francisco. The new store opening with Angela Rent was the highest ranking Apple VP there, wasn't she?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you thought of her. I think it was probably the first time you had a chance to listen to her. I don't know if you had a chance to talk to her, but first time you had a chance to listen to her. What were your impressions of Miss Arendt?
Well, she clearly didn't like public speaking.
Really? Interesting.
No, she didn't, and that was fine. You know, she did a great job. What I was interested to hear was why all the big changes at this store. I mean, when you look at the changes at this store, it really is a brand new design for Apple's flagship stores. And I had a really good time listening to their explanation about why they did certain things. You know, everything in there is based on like a town square, she said.
Yeah.
So, you know, you kind of have the Genius Grove and the plaza and, you know, the little application windows that they have. All great stuff. And what she said made perfect sense. So it was great to hear from her.
How did the store look? I know it's massive. I know it's a gigantic store, but is it pleasant? Or does it feel like a big, too open space? It's the impression I got from some of the photos.
No, it actually doesn't. I know exactly what you mean. Like it's a spacious warehouse type of deal. Yeah. You know, and it wasn't at all, because in places, if you look at the Apple stores now where they have Genius bars, for example, now they have this Genius Grove. And the way that it's laid out, you sit on the same side of the table as the Genius. Yeah. And there are trees lining the area. And I don't know what else to say, but to say that it was more calming. You know, the whole experience of the store was more calming. There was a 6K TV thing there. Yeah. Oh my God, it was incredible. I wanted to turn the hockey game on. You know, order Papa John's and a case of beer and watch the hockey game on that thing. But there was a lot in that store that they rethought. So they have these things called windows now. They're not actually windows. They're places of app-specific accessories and people. So, for instance, they have a photography window. And in that area, it is basically the size of a big window, but in that area, it's all about photography, not just Apple stuff, but third-party accessories for photography. Yeah. A person there that knows about photography, and that's their specialty, is photography. So you can go in and talk to this person and say, here's what I would like to do. And they will say, oh, well, here's an app you should try, and here's a stand to stabilize your pictures, and here's this thing, and you know, you'll really like maybe the DxO camera would be a great accessory. They have all of this stuff right there. So, you know, they have that for photographers. They also have some for artists. for drawing. They have music. They have all kinds of different things there, and that's great. But this isn't going to be in every Apple store.
Really? Because that's what everyone seems to frickin' think.
Well, it can't.
No kidding.
It's too big. Now, in Apple's flagship stores, absolutely. I see Apple's flagship stores turning over. Now, what I think people will see, if you go to a smaller store, I'll just pick one out of my head for the area. If you go to Soho in New York, you may find, because it's artist-centric, you may find an artist-specific window there, where people can go in and talk. That's how I think that the other way that they can, but an area of Chicago that is very music centric, you would probably have a music window in there where people can go and talk about music stuff. But there's very few artists, and maybe they'll skip the art one.
Yeah. Yeah, they can tailor it to the location that it's in, especially in the cities like New York, like Chicago. They have multiple locations and therefore multiple abilities to change the location to suit the neighborhood, basically.
Right, and that's not to say that the philosophy of what they're doing won't transfer to all the stores.
Yeah.
Because they, like the Genius bars, the Genius Grove as opposed to the Genius bars, but they're trying to make that whole experience more, I don't know, I don't want to say intimate because that's the wrong word, but more friendly.
No.
Like the Genius is standing there with you as opposed to standing across from you. It's small things like that actually, it does give you a better sense of calming, because if you and I were sitting here working on a problem, chances are we'd be sitting on the same side of the table,
sure,
looking at the same screen as opposed to on the opposite sides of the table.
Yeah.
So, two friends sitting down working on something as opposed to, a genius and a customer.
Yeah. It's pretty obvious those doors, the 42-foot high, 40-foot high doors, seem pretty cool from an architectural and engineering point of view. It seems pretty obvious that that's for Apple selling cars in the future, right?
Well,
shut up! Shut up!
No, listen.
No!
That's what Rennie Ritchie said, that it was for. As soon as he saw the doors, he said, you can pull a car in there, and you know what? He's absolutely right. You could.
You don't need 42-foot high doors for cars.
No, I know. Now, what that does, these doors are 42 feet high and 40 feet wide. What that does is open up the entire store to Union Square.
Yes.
I have never seen a store open up like that before. Now, they opened and closed them very quickly when we were there. Well, I won't say quickly. Those doors do not open quickly.
Yeah, they take about 15, 20 minutes to open.
But when they opened those doors, it was like the entire store opened up to Union Square. And it was quite a feeling. Now, I heard somebody say, and I don't know who it was, that this is San Francisco. You won't be able to open those doors all the time. And they're right.
Yeah, that's right.
They're absolutely right.
It's not L.A. Yeah, it's probably about a third of the time, 2/3 of the time they'll be closed.
Oh, I would guess so. It would have to be, because that place will be freezing.
Yep.
San Francisco, people think California, it's funny, you can have those open all the time. No,
not in San Francisco.
It's freezing in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So, they won't be open all the time, but the pictures that they have with those doors open are quite remarkable, because it really does open up. It's like the Apple Store is part of outdoors.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I'm sorry, Jeff Gamet at Mac Observer and our good old friend Dennis Sellers at Apple World Today both wrote stories about this was going to be a car sales showroom. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No one needs 42-foot high doors to sell cars, you morons.
Well, if there was a store that they were going to showcase one in, this would be it because it's probably the biggest store that they have.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
I mean, if that's their plan in 5 years' time, which it may or may not be, again,
right.
The doors don't have to be 42 feet high, is my point.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I can't argue that point. But, you know, again, Rennie Ritchie, first thing he said, he was standing right beside me. He said, "You could drive a car right in there." You know? and you could drive a truck in there the way that
drive a plane in there, for crying out loud.
Maybe Apple's gonna have a pickup truck.
Exactly, that's right. Arcsign writes, Shawn, cars will be hung like fruit apples from branches, and the customers will pick them off the branches.
Yeah,
okay, you know what? Let's get stupid about this because there's a motorcycle museum in Alabama, Barber Motorsports, beautiful motorsport museum that has so every museum has got more bits than they have space for those bits. So museums will rotate their exhibits in and out. Well, Barber has their motorcycles on a conveyor belt attached to the wall.
Oh.
So the bikes go up along the wall. The bikes are actually on the wall. So as slowly all the bikes, I think there's like 6 different conveyor belts, gigantic conveyor belts, where these bikes are attached to, and the bikes slowly move up and down on the conveyor belt.
Idea.
So maybe that's what Apple's going to do. They're going to have these cars. No, I'm not going there. Sorry, that's stupid. Stop it.
Don't stop.
Now, you and I and both many of our audience remember 15 years ago, Apple opened up the store specifically on last week because 15 years ago, Steve Jobs opened up. Apple opened up 2 stores: Tyson's Corner in Virginia on the East Coast and in Palo Alto on the West Coast in California. Do you remember what your initial opinions were of those first Apple stores, or the idea of Apple stores?
Yeah, same as it is now. I thought they were incredible. You know, things back then were a little bit different, and a lot of people won't remember the kerfuffle that happened around the stores. Yeah. But you know, Steve wasn't happy with the way that Apple products were being serviced and were being sold, and he warned the people that were running these stores, either you do it or I'll do it.
Yep.
You know, and as it turns out, Apple did it. And they didn't just do retail. They did retail in a brand new way.
Yep.
And something else that was happening at this exact time that a lot of people don't remember is that Gateway was shutting down all of their retail stores.
Yep.
So retail analysts and financial people were saying Apple, they're morons.
Yep.
You know, Gateway, an established brand, can't run retail anymore because it doesn't work. And Apple's opening up a very expensive retail stores. It'll never work.
Yep.
Well, it did work. You know, just like the iPod worked and the iPhone worked, and you know, everything that analysts get paid to do and do wrong.
Exactly. That's right.
But the retail store, you know, I was in these before they were open.
Yep.
And you really got a sense of what we loved about Apple in the retail stores, and still do. It's the minimalism, but the focus on the product.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I love about Apple retail stores. You know, it's not jammed full every aisle so that, you know, you even have trouble walking around the store. It's very spacious, but everything you need is right there. And it's great. Like Dave Mark said when he posted that video of Steve, the only thing that dates this video are the products.
And the red phone.
I mean, other than that, the stores still look spacious and minimalist, but very well done. The only thing that dates that video is the products.
No, and like I said, and the red phone. Remember the red phone? Remember the big deal that Jobs made of that red phone?
Red phone, baby.
I was there at the opening of the first Soho store, or the first New York store in Soho, and Jobs gave a demonstration of that stuff, and sure enough, the red phone was there. It was just very funny that they were using that red phone. The other thing that was really funny about the stores back then versus now is that if folks may not realize this, but Apple put those theaters into the stores because they were worried people weren't going to want to come into the stores. They thought, we've only got Macintoshes at the time. All we can really sell is Macs and third-party software and hardware. So let's do this theater thing and invite people to come in to take classes and listen to people talk. But it wasn't very long before Apple, maybe 5 years before Apple realized we don't need the theaters anymore. And none of the stores in the past 5 years have had, the regular everyday mall stores have had the theater. So it was interesting to me to see Apple in this new retail store in San Francisco kind of bringing the idea of the theater back. They've also got, we didn't mention this, they've got what's the outside area called that'll be open 24 hours a day?
The Plaza?
The Plaza. There'll be 24 hours a day open. There'll be Wi-Fi there. They'll do concerts there. They'll do all kinds of really cool things. And they're opening up the theater section for folks outside of Apple to do presentations and the like, which is really kind of cool, too.
Right, yeah. And very good, because now the concerts out back are going to be, they specifically said acoustic. I don't know if that'll change, but they said acoustic. So, think a couple of guys with a guitar, singing and you're sitting there, you have free Wi-Fi, and it's a park that they built that they basically gave to the city. I mean, it's really nice.
The strangest thing I read last week with regards to these stores was this tweet, and the tweet said, Apple stores turn 15 tomorrow and generate more revenue per square foot than any other retailer. It's something we all know. And there's a graphic from time.com. Apple, per square foot, Apple makes $5,500 per square foot in the retail stores. Tiffany's, who sells diamonds, by the way, makes about $3,000 per square foot. Murphy USA, I don't even know what Murphy USA is, makes $3,700. Kate Spade, $1,500. Coach, $1,100, so on and so forth. Now, that's not the weird thing about this tweet. The weird thing about the tweet is the guy who tweeted it is Brad Armstrong. Do you know who Brad Armstrong is?
No.
Brad Armstrong is the vice president of marketing at Microsoft.
Wow.
He is the Microsoft Corporate Vice President, Enterprise Client and Mobility. Sorry. It's kind of weird for Microsoft to be trumpeting the Apple sales success, considering nowhere on that list that I mentioned is Microsoft. Yeah. And it's not like he said, hey, this is a list we want to be on, or this is something we're shooting for. He just so this has completely changed computer retail. It has completely changed consumer electronics retail. People don't really seem to understand or really comprehend how much Apple has 180 degrees changed the way computers are sold, changed the way software is sold, changed the way hardware is sold. It's really, really interesting to watch other companies fail to replicate what seems like a fairly simple retail presence.
Yeah.
We watched
but it's not.
It's absolutely not. People think that all they have to do is just copy the store design, which is what Microsoft tried to do, and they are failing miserably. Yeah. That being the case, what do you think is the secret to Apple's success in retail?
It's Apple.
Yeah.
No other company is going to be able to come out and make the type of store that Apple did because they don't have the products that Apple
That's
do.
Right. That's right.
It's the whole thing. It's not just that Apple made a minimalist store. I mean, that's obvious because, Microsoft tried it with their products and it just didn't work.
Yep.
So, it's the whole company. It's the whole ecosystem. Now people can walk in, and how many times have we walked by an Apple store and it's just packed, and we walk by other stores in the exact same area and they're empty? Apple didn't just change consumer electronics for retail. They changed retail.
Yep.
And, Ron Johnson was a huge part of that. Unfortunately, he couldn't carry that on at JCPenney, but he was a huge part of that. And they changed the way that things were done. And they've continued, with this, the checkout and, all the different things that they do at retail. The things that other companies couldn't be bothered with,
Yep.
Apple did and did very well.
It's a combination of both interesting, cool products, but also an interesting, cool way of doing retail. It's not the high-pressure tactics you'll get in some stores. They do, but in the customer-facing method that the Apple retail employees have isn't, hey, buy something now. It's,
right.
How can I help you? What can I do to help you accomplish what you want to get accomplished?
But the thing is, when you walk into an Apple store and you want, a hard drive,
yep.
You don't have to look very hard to find a hard drive because there are not that many products, blocking your view, or you just look around and say, oh, there they are over there.
Yep.
And you go over and there's a selection of hard drives and you choose the one that you want, or if you can't find the one that you want, you ask them. But here's the thing about Apple retail that I feel. If you go in and you're looking for a hard drive and they have a selection of hard drives, I'm comfortable with the fact that they have chosen the best hard drives to put in their stores.
Yes.
So if I don't see the one that I'm looking for, I may choose something else just because they chose to have it there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we also know that's not true. That's the impression. That's the impression that Apple gives because we trust Apple. But it's not true. That's the best product of its brand, of its kind, of its model out there.
Maybe. But in a lot of cases, I think it is. Now, with headphones, certainly not. I don't think Beats are the best headphones.
And now they're stocking Will.i.am headphones, which are also crap.
Okay, well, we don't even need to talk about Will.i.am.
But that's what I'm saying. Apple. I think Apple is pissing away some of its goodwill by allowing these kinds of products in that are demonstrably not the best product.
But when I look at, I talked about hard drives specifically because I say recently, within the past few, one for my son and one for me,
yep.
Both were the LaCie Porsche designed hard drives. They were, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were 2 terabytes each. And they were, relatively cheap considering it's 2 terabytes.
Did you buy a Porsche-designed hard drive because you thought it would be faster? That's going to be the dumbest marketing campaign I've ever seen. LaCie has Porsche-designed hard drives. They're rectangles, okay? Yeah. They're not in the shape of a 911 Carrera. It's a rectangle.
No, that's very true. That is very true.
But they keep trumpeting the fact they're Porsche designed. I don't freaking care who designed my hard drive.
I will tell you why I bought them, because the price was still good. They were 2 terabytes, and they were LaCie. LaCie has a good name in hard drives.
You've gotten so soft living in California.
So that is why I chose. Now, the fact that they were Porsche designed actually didn't mean that much, but it says Porsche on it. And I can, when I'm doing podcasts, I can take my hard drive and go across my desk and actually feel good about it because it's Porsche design.
You have gotten fat and lazy in your time in California. You are no longer the hard-ass Nova Scotianer that I loved and remember. And I have proof of that. You know how I have proof of that?
What?
It's a story you posted on the Loop today. Modern hammock. This looks very comfy. Are you shitting me? Are you kidding me? Folks, the hammock that Jim is pimping on the Loop. All right, you ready for this? It's a $2,500 hammock.
But you know what impressed me about that hammock? I mean, let's be honest. Look at the wood that's in that hammock. And most hammocks are so narrow that, somebody as big and ugly as me would get in. I would twirl right around and fall on the ground.
I don't even get on hammocks for that exact reason.
But this one is so wide, and it's got a built-in pillow. I mean, I would never, ever get any work done. I really
soft.
Wouldn't.
You've gone soft.
Modern hammock right there. Everybody, go buy a modern hammock.
At $2,500, go buy a hammock.
I would have to see my hammock right now is stretched between beams under the bridge.
Under the bridge. That's where you sleep, too.
And
It's not a hammock. It's a bed.
It's a bed.
It's a bed.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
And it's held up with bungee cables. So,
I saw that loop this morning and went, what? What's he talking about, modern hammock? What the hell is he talking about?
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
my God.
I had a headache when I posted that. So
and then I clicked through and thought, well, that's kind of interesting. I wonder why. And then I saw it, went, how much is this? And it doesn't say in that front page that you linked to what I had to go like surfing to 4 or 5 other pages to find it. And when I hit $2,500, I went, $2,500? Are you kidding me? I could buy a car for that.
Yeah, I had a headache when I posted that. So don't judge me.
Folks, I've been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Hey, I saw on your Twitter feed that Amplified is back. Is that true?
Well, we did a show today, and Dan
cool.
wants to. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had a good time talking today.
Good to hear. Hopefully, we'll see it up on the iTunes store sometime soon, folks. Say goodbye to Jim. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Shawn.
See you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, that hammock thing just cracked me up. The fact that he had posted about a hammock. And we post some strange things on the Loop, and rightfully so, because Jim has told us, post what you're interested in. So I post stuff that I've got an interest in. So does Jim. And so the hammock thing was like, hammock? Why hammock? Wayne said, when we were talking about products in the Apple Store, Wayne said, Wayne said, they're more likely to pick the most profitable items for the store. I was going to say I'm not going to name names, but screw it, I'm going to name names. A lot of you folks know I used to work for the guys at Griffin Technology. Paul Griffin is the owner of Griffin Technology. And back in the day, this was probably 3 or 4 years after the Apple stores came out. What would happen is, I don't know if it's the same way now, but what happens is either Apple sees your company's product and says, hey, come on in to see us at One Infinite Loop, give us a demonstration of your product. Or you pitch Apple, hey, we have this product, can we come show it to you? So I worked both ways with Griffin. So Paul Griffin told me this story of them going in to see the retail guys at Apple and saying that Belkin, we all know who the company Belkin is, I don't even know what it was anymore, but had a particular product that cost, I think, $50 in the Apple Store. Griffin had a similar product, similar in the sense that it did the exact same thing the Belkin product did, but did more stuff, and according to Griffin, did it better. For Griffin, their product was $35. This is end retail price. And so Griffin was like, yes, we're going to get this product into the Apple Store. It's fantastic. So they go into Apple, they show the product off, and Apple says, no, we're not interested. And Paul Griffin said, well, why not? It does the same thing as the Belkin product. It is more than the Belkin product for $15 less to the customer. And Apple said, well, we take a cut of the profits. If the product is $15 less, that's $15 less cut of a profit we can make. We're happy with the Belkin product. It works fine, but we make X number of dollars off the Belkin product. We actually make less money off of your product. So just because it's in the Apple Store does not mean it's the best possible product for that design, for that market, for that task or job. You still got to do your own research. You still got to do your own figuring out whether things are right or wrong. MacMan says, didn't Steve stop by one of Griffin's Macworld San Francisco booths and say he liked whatever product he was looking at? Yeah, he did that in Japan too. He actually walked up to me in Japan and asked me to demonstrate one of the Griffin products. It was at the last Macworld Tokyo. And I'm standing there, all the Griffin guys, because they go to these conventions to sell product. So all the Griffin guys were off talking to other people. I'm just sort of standing in the booth. And Steve Jobs walks up to me and says, hey, demonstrate this product for me. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I'm like, it does this. Luckily, one of the Griffin guys came back fairly quickly and didn't leave me hanging there with Steve Jobs. It was like, Mr. Jobs, he knows more about it than I do, and I handed him off. But they've also done it at Macworld Expos in San Francisco and in New York. What are your memories of your local Apple store or visiting an Apple store? When I go to different countries, I love visiting the Apple stores. I've been to the one in Rome and Paris and London and Tokyo. And, no, not Tokyo, because it was before then. But the other places I go to. The North American ones, I don't go in them anymore. There's no magic. Like I said, to me, they're boring. As Wayne said, that's branding, but to me, they're boring. But it's also partially because I'm nerdy enough to know what's in the Apple store. There's no magic there for me. I'll go in with a new cool product. I went in to see the Apple Watch. I went in to see the iPad Pro. So when they got new cool stuff, I'll go in and see it. But MacMan says, I'd be happy if we had an Apple store closer, 110 miles away. Yeah, that's always going to be an issue for folks. Wayne, is Sony store still even a thing? The local ones closed up ages ago. Apple store is still going strong. I meant to say this when Jim was on the phone. Apple has never closed a store permanently. They've closed them for renovations. But Apple has never closed any of the stores that they've had open, which is pretty interesting. It means they know what they're doing. It means they've done their research. They know what stores will be successful in what areas, and they know how to make them successful. So congratulations to everyone at Apple. The retail environment's been an incredible, incredible story. In our starting point photography segment, we've got all kinds of questions, folks asking me about cameras. And in general, folks ask, what's the best camera? Well, nobody can tell you what the best camera is because, A, every camera is different. There are different kinds, models, brands, styles of camera. There are different kinds of photographers, too. I know what kind of cameras I like for the kind of photography I like to do. But I can rarely say to you, buy that camera. That camera will be the best one for you. I don't know. I give general opinions. The Canon, if you're looking for a DSLR, the Canon Rebel line is a good beginning line of cameras. The Nikon D3300 line is a good beginning line of cameras. One thing I keep getting asked about is what is a mirrorless camera, and what are the differences between a mirrorless camera and a DSLR? In general, a DSLR and mirrorless are the same thing because we generally think of mirrorless cameras as ones where the lens comes off. Sorry, not mirrorless cameras. DSLR cameras as ones where the lens comes off, and you can swap out different lenses, right? So I can get different lenses for different kind of shooting styles and shooting environments. The biggest, most obvious difference, this is my beloved Nikon D600. I love this camera. When I go shooting, this is the camera I take everywhere I go. And here is a mirrorless camera. This is the Olympus M1 camera. And right from the front, you can see a significant size difference in these two cameras. Look at it from the, or if I can do this without dropping one of them, from the top, and then look at them from the sides. So there's a physical difference. There's also a significant weight difference. This DSLR is probably at least 2 times as heavy as this one with a comparable lens on it. So let's talk about those differences between a mirrorless camera and a DSLR. Their size, weight, sensor, quality, viewfinder, and speed. And we'll come back to that. First thing is the sensor size. And this shows you how we take photographs. Imagine that all of these squares are the sensor of your camera, the thing that captures the light, that turns the image into digital bits and bobs that you can see in the back of the screen or see on your computer. You see in the lower left-hand side, that's the iPhone. So that's the size of the sensor on it. This is not to scale, by the way. That's the size of the iPhone. Next up in the green is what's called micro four thirds, and micro four thirds cameras are mirrorless cameras. They call these things micro four thirds. Next up is the what's called APC or cropped sensors. You'll see this if you have a Canon Rebel. And then finally, you'll have what are called full frame sensors, which is what's in my big professional level DSLR. To give you an idea of these sizes, a full frame sensor is about the size, it's a little bit bigger than, actually significantly bigger than a postage stamp, about the size of an old piece of 35 millimeter film. Remember that? Remember you used to hold that film up? And one of those frames is about the same size as the sensor. Your iPhone is about the size less than your pinky finger nail. Really, really tiny. In general, given the same megapixels, the bigger the sensor, the better the pictures. Everything else being equal. Sensor size is more important than megapixels nowadays. So keep that in mind. It's not something you can shop around for. If you're buying an iPhone, every iPhone is the same sensor size of the same model. Every cropped sensor camera, Nikon D3300, Canon Rebels, have the exact same sensor size. Just want to let you know about that. The other issue when it comes to mirrorless versus DSLR is the physical size of this camera, of this DSLR, is a lot to do with the internals of it. Inside here is this great big hunk of glass called a mirror. It works like any other mirror. Light comes in the front, it bounces around on the inside, and comes out through the viewfinder. This is through the viewfinder where you can see what the front lens sees. And that's the sound you hear, one of the sounds you hear when you take a picture. That's the mirror moving up and down, and it's the shutter opening up and closed. So look at this graphic, and I'll show you what I mean. You can see how the light comes in from the right-hand side, passes through the elements of the lens. There's a mirror there that's on an angle. It bounces light off the mirror up into what's called a pentaprism, which is another mirror. And the pentaprism lives up in here, in this top hump of your camera. That's why all DSLRs have this humpy bit on the top. That's where your pentaprism is, because it's got to be in a situation where light can come through the viewfinder. So the light bounces around in the pentaprism and then comes out the viewfinder. Now, when you hear that sound, that's the sound of that flip-up mirror flipping up out of the way and then letting light hit that image sensor. You see on the left-hand side, it says image sensor. So the mirror flips up out of the way. The light, instead of hitting the mirror, now hits the image sensor. And that's why when you take a picture with these cameras, your screen goes blank for a second, or goes dark for a second, because suddenly that mirror, which was on an angle, is up out of the way and is blocking the light, or the light is no longer reflecting. Well, the thing is, by their name, these mirrorless cameras don't have that mirror, which is why they're so much thinner and therefore lighter than a DSLR. So there are advantages and disadvantages to that. One, size and weight. This is significantly smaller than this, and that's good and bad depending on your personal choices. Smaller for some is good. For me personally, it's not so good. I have a tough time holding this little tiny camera because I find it's just cramped. I find that I can't get the buttons really easily because it's very cramped. Whereas my D600 is very comfortable in my hand. I have no problem holding this. I have no problem getting to all the buttons on the back of it. So that's a personal choice that you make, which is why I tell people, don't buy a camera online. Go into a camera store and feel the camera. See how it fits your hand. Because the specs on this camera are fantastic. The specs on the Olympus M1 are amazing. But the physical size of it isn't good for me. So if I'd gone into the store, if I'd bought this online, I would have gotten home and gone, oh, I bought the wrong camera. This is a little rinky-dink camera. So size is good and bad. The other thing is, I like the big heft of this because I feel, and this is a personal choice, it lets me hold the camera steadier. I can, because of the weight of this thing, it doesn't move around as much as an iPhone or a point and shoot or a mirrorless camera. So that's the size and weight issue and the sensor issue. The sensor issue goes along with the quality issue. Like I said before, the bigger the sensor, in general, all things being even, the better quality your images are going to be. But it's also a matter of these bigger cameras have got, in general, bigger and better bits. They're going to be more, again, in general, more well-made, more likely to be made out of metal, out of steel than plastic. The lenses tend to be better quality than the equivalent lenses on a mirrorless camera. In general, everything is going to be a little bit better. Now, that being said, the mirrorless guys are really catching up fast. There are some amazing mirrorless cameras out there, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. So the other aspect of it, of mirrorless versus DSLR, that's important for you as a photographer, is the viewfinder and the speed or focus. These cameras, DSLRs, have what's called optical viewfinders. What that means is the light comes in the lens, like I showed you before, it bounces around those mirrors, and the light comes through the viewfinder. So when you're looking through the viewfinder, you're seeing what's coming through the lens. There's no interruption. You're seeing exactly what is coming through the lens. When you're looking at, let's turn this on. Come on, turn on. When you're looking at that back screen, the LCD screen in the back, that's like looking at a little tiny TV screen. You're not seeing exactly what the lens sees. You're seeing what the sensor sees. It's a little bit of a difference on that, and I'll show you why. On mirrorless cameras, because there is no mirror, these have what's called an electronic viewfinder. Optical on DSLRs, electronic on mirrorless. What that means is the light isn't coming in here and then coming out here. The light's coming in through the lens, hitting the sensor, and then the sensor projects it on this little tiny TV screen in your viewfinder. Same as your LCD panel here on the back. You think of it as two LCD panels, one bigger than the other. The downside of this is it uses up a lot of battery life. My DSLR, I can shoot for a full day, let's say 500 shots, without any worries about battery life. This thing needs a new battery after 500 shots. Probably around 300 shots, depending on how much I use the back LCD screen. So you're going to use up more batteries. I generally don't carry around a backup battery when I'm shooting with my 600D. I always carry around a backup battery when I'm shooting with the mirrorless camera. The other advantage of the electronic viewfinder is that you're not seeing what the lens sees, you're seeing what the sensor sees. So when you make adjustments on the camera, you can see those adjustments happening live on one of these two screens, which is kind of cool. I don't know if I can show this to you exactly. So here we've got, me, you don't want to see that. But as I make changes with these buttons, I have the wrong lens in there, never mind. But what will happen is as you make changes to aperture and shutter speed and exposure and all those kind of changes you can make on a DSLR, they're reflected live to the screen in the back, which you can't do on a DSLR. So if you want to see what the depth of field will be like, or what the exposure will be like, or what those kinds of things will be like, this can be a lot better. The other downside of these is, in general, the speed at which it focuses. So when you have the camera on and you hear that beep, that means it's in focus. A DSLR is almost always going to be faster than a mirrorless camera. It also means that that thing that we call hunting for focus happens faster on a DSLR than it does on a mirrorless camera. Mirrorless cameras tend to have trouble in low contrast situations. Low contrast being you're trying to shoot a white cat in the snow. mirrorless cameras tend to have a lot more trouble getting those kinds of shots. The other one I've noticed with this one in particular is that it's not great for action shots. When I took this to the horse races, I had a lot of trouble getting this camera to focus on the moving horses. Static things were fine. It took some great static shots. But when it came to capturing motion, this camera wasn't particularly good. I got a few that way, but not nearly as many as I got with this camera, with automatic focus. So those are some of the ups and downs. Another one is you're not inconspicuous with this. It's hard to do street photography for the average person if you're trying to be inconspicuous with something this gigantic walking around with. Now, for me, I don't care. I'm already pretty big, so carrying around a big camera is not that big a deal to me. But if it's a concern, if you want to take photos where you're not noticed, a big DSLR probably isn't the greatest choice. The other thing is the mirrorless cameras are great for traveling. Really good. I mean, that could almost fit into a pocket. That could almost fit in your jeans. These cameras are so small. They're easy to carry around. They don't weigh very much. So if you're doing a lot of walking through, Rome or London or Tokyo, this is an easier thing for a lot of folks to carry around than it is a big DSLR. For the most part, if you are the average user looking to get your first fancy camera, I would suggest you look at the mirrorless models first. Olympus, Fuji, Sony, all make amazingly good mirrorless cameras. Surprisingly enough, Nikon and Canon, who are the big boys when it comes to DSLRs, don't make particularly good mirrorless cameras. So if you're going to go for mirrorless, look to Olympus, look to Fuji, look to Sony. Go to your local here in Canada, London Drugs, your local Carousdale camera here in Vancouver, in the States, the Best Buys. Look to a mirrorless camera, see if maybe that will be able to be your first fancy camera. When it comes to lenses, mirrorless cameras have all kinds of lenses, and because they are of the micro four thirds, it means that this Olympus lens fits on a Fuji, fits on a Sony, and Fuji and Sony lenses fit on the Olympus because they've all got the common mount here. This lens will not fit on this DSLR. It won't go. So people say, oh, Olympus doesn't have enough lenses. Well, maybe they don't, but with the combination of the lenses you can get from Fuji, Panasonic, and Sony, you can almost get to as many lenses as Canon and Nikon has. So don't let lenses dissuade you from buying one of these mirrorless cameras. If you have any questions about this kind of stuff, please let me know. Send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. You know I love answering questions from you guys. So if you have any questions at all about cameras in general or mirrorless in particular, or what kind of stuff to buy, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help you guys out. Oh, I wanted to remind you guys, if you were one of the folks who sent me in a photo for critique, I'm going to send it again. We'll try to do a critique either next week or the week after, but because of my hard drive crash and because mail screwed up on me, I lost your email. I'm sorry. So if you want a photo for critique, gentle, friendly, loving critique, send it off to me at Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. I got a question from Jim Bevilacqua. Sorry, Jim, in New Orleans. He says, the question, should I rent a Canon or Nikon DSLR for my trip? Doesn't matter. It makes no difference. They're both great cameras. I don't know what your trip is. I don't know if it's a safari or whether it's a trip to Vegas or whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever camera you buy, rent, is going to be fine. Unless you've got a personal preference of Canon versus Nikon. For all intents and purposes, they're the exact same camera. They have different ways of doing the exact same thing. But if you don't have a preference already, rent whatever's cheapest. Doesn't make any difference. Our friend Jason Painter in Australia says, I went all in on aperture. but only to be burned a year later when it was announced end of life. Apple never supported it very well. I bought a camera, and Apple didn't release a raw update for it till a year later. I was already on to another camera. I moved to Lightroom, and I really liked it. I should have started with Lightroom. Even if you like it, the worry with Aperture is that it might one day break. There's a factor that makes it important to move to another application sooner rather than later before you've done a lot of work. You can export your metadata with no issues, but you will lose all of your edits. I guess Apple's development team stopped short of exporting the edits along with the metadata in the XMP file. I learned this the hard way. Luckily, I hadn't edited many photos, but imagine if you had thousands. Jason says, your recent experience with renting lenses made me wonder why you got a wide-angle zoom and not a prime. I always thought that at the wide-angle end of the scale, one wanted a prime, mostly because a prime can always have a wider aperture than a zoom. Very interested in your decision. No real reason, Jason, except for the guy at the camera shop said the wide-angle zoom was sharper than the prime wide-angle he had. That was it. I would love to get a prime, but that's $1,000, not an amount that I feel is unreasonable that I couldn't pay for. But in 3 years' time, I plan to buy a new camera, and that will be a full frame instead of the crop sensor one I've got now. So that means new lenses. Timing is difficult. Yeah, the lens I rented two, 1424 wide-angle lens, which I think was like a $2,000 lens. I rented it for a weekend for $30, and a 70 to 200 millimeter zoom lens, f2.8, which means it just grabbed a bunch of light that took some such good pictures. Even though I do say so myself, took some really nice pictures, and that was a $3,000 lens, and that was $40 for the weekend. I mean, you just can't go wrong with renting lenses in that situation. That it was going to be a shoot that I should be able to slideshow this, shouldn't I? Hang on a second. I'm trying to get the Adobe. Messing around with. There we go. With Lightroom, trying to get it to. Crap. Wait a minute. That link there has got a link to these photos. But I was using a lens that I couldn't normally have gotten those kind of shots with. And it was a lens that I wasn't ever going to buy on my own. I can't afford a $3,000 lens. Are you kidding me? That's just nuts. Hope to someday, but right now I certainly can. Wayne says, having used it, do you find yourself thinking, dang, I wish I had that $3,000 lens today? That's a great question, Wayne, because what I tend to do is shoot to my lens. In other words, I know what lens I have in the camera, so I'll shoot to within that lens's capabilities. So if I've got a, say on this one, this is my general lens on this is 24 to 120. And this is the camera I carry around all the time, the one I shoot with all the time. If I see a bald eagle flying off in the distance, I don't even try to shoot it because I know this lens can't capture it. If I see an interesting cloud formation over the mountains, I won't bother because I know this lens can't shoot it. That being said, I wish I had that lens in my bag. I think I'd shoot a lot more with that 7200 millimeter lens. If I had it, I'd use it. But because I don't have it, I don't even think about taking the shots that lens requires. MacMan says I should rent a wide-angle zoom like that for the Phoenix Comic-Con. Oh, absolutely. Oh, you definitely should. Again, it's a lens you're never going to, you're not going to buy. You can probably rent it for, depending on where you live, $20 to $30 a day. MacMan, you're in the U.S., so check out lensprotogo.com. See what they've got available for lens rental. And you guys know I love the lensprotogo.com. Love those guys. I wish I could use them up here in Canada. They send them to you in a great big otter case. They send them. So what are you looking at? You're looking at a wide angle lens. They've got a Canon fisheye for 4 days for $83. A Canon 1124 wide angle for $126 for 4 days. These are multi-$1,000 lenses. There's a bunch of really cool lenses from these guys. So there's a Canon 1124 for $126. Prices are decent. Prices are not bad. The other thing you can do too, MacMan, because you say you shoot D7100, you can shoot a fancier camera too, because they rent bodies as well. So you could rent see what cameras they got. Say an 810, Nikon 810. Just going through their list to see what kind of Nikons they have. Canon. There's the Nikons. Yeah, you can rent the Nikon D800, which is insane, for $155 for 4 days. Yeah, their website has always sucked. It's always annoyed the hell out of me that this is the website that they have. It's never been very, very good. But try it out. Lens Pro to go. Also, camerarental.com is another place that I've seen rent lenses. It's fun. It's kind of neat. Lensrental.com is better. The other thing I like about Lens Pro to go is that their shipping and insurance costs are built into the price of the lens. They don't add it on extra afterwards. There's something to keep in mind when you're going lens shopping. Oh, I want to say a big congratulations to a good friend of the show, Don Beck in Chilmark, Massachusetts. Don and his lovely wife Gail are celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary tonight. So congratulations to Don and Gail on your 30th anniversary. You guys should be very proud of yourselves. And Robert Studer writes with regards to File Vault on last week's show. He says, me and my tech support friends have taken it to calling it Vile Fault. Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that one, guys. Folks, that's it for tonight's show. I want to say thanks very much, as always, to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining me here each and every Wednesday. Don't forget to check him out on Amplified, which is back. Yay! And also the Dalrymple Report, both available on the iTunes Store. Until next week, as always, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!